From USMB, this is the Christian Leader Podcast.
I'm just really passionate about it because I think we have a misunderstanding about failure. Failure is very important for learning. We have to fail to learn. And, we, as parents, we really want to protect our kids. And oftentimes we get in the way of that learning.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Christian Leader Podcast. My name is Matt Erzman, and once again, so glad to be your host today. And that other voice that you just heard was my real-life friend, Brady Bergman. Brady is a licensed clinical professional counselor here in Wichita. Before that, he had over 20 years in the fire department. He's also been involved in youth ministry, men's ministry, and a lot of different things in church world. And today we're diving into some very practical parenting topics, and more specifically, how and when, and maybe even why, we should let our children fail. And this is hard, right? As parents, we want the best for our kids. We don't want them to suffer, but sometimes they need to learn how to suffer and how to deal with consequences, how to deal with disappointment. So today, Brady's got really great stuff to share, both from his own personal journey as a parent, what he's learned through years, honestly decades of kind of being a lay counselor, as well as his clinical training as well, and his practice today as a practicing therapist. So my hope for you today, if you're a parent, I think you're going to eat this up. There's lots of really good stuff for parents. Or if you work with kids at your church, or if you ever interact with children ever, I think there's something that we can all pull from this. And this is a great, really practical episode. So let's take a quick break to hear from this week's sponsor, and then we'll get to my conversation with Brady Bergman.
Great news for the Central Valley and beyond. Fresno Pacific University has received a transformational $10 million Lilly Endowment grant to equip and support today's church leaders, especially co-vocational pastors serving our communities. This investment expands seminary training, launches new programs, and provides vital scholarships for ministry students. And when you give toward the Lilly Matching Grant, your gift is matched, doubling your impact. Join us in strengthening the future of the church. Give today at fpu.edu/seminary.
All right, friends. Well, today I'm excited to introduce you to a real-life friend of mine that I've known for many, many years, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. It's a great topic and a really great guest. So Brady Bergman is joining us today. Brady is a licensed clinical professional counselor here in Wichita, where I'm at. He's got great background, and we're going to tackle, I think, a evergreen topic, but something that I think is extra relevant to a lot of us right now in our current culture. So Brady, it is great to have you with us, man. Welcome to the Christian Leader Podcast.
I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this ever since you asked me. So, yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Absolutely, man. This is going to be fun. So if people don't know you yet, Brady, so you've been a counselor for a little while now. When did that start?
Oh, when it started is an interesting question because I was a firefighter for over 20 years and I've been married for coming up on 20 now.
Okay.
I really always had an interest in psychology, but being, a neurodiverse ADHD kid, school was really, really difficult for me. And I, looking at my grades, weighing out therapist, fireman, I went with using my head to bust through walls instead of digging in textbooks. But really got into the church doing like pornography cessation with men. Really started doing group therapy. I didn't even realize I was doing group therapy. Then through the fire department, I was a member of our peer support team. And so working with trauma and difficult situations, traumatic events with firefighters, it was kind of a lay therapist in that capacity. And then working through things with my own marriage and all that, I looked at it and thought, this would be better than dragging fire hose in my 50s and 60s, and started working on my master's and lined that up with retirement. So professionally, I've been doing this full-time for approximately 3 years. I think I'm coming up on 4 years, but I've been in this in a lay capacity for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, I know just because we've chatted before, like you kind of got into this, like you just mentioned, when you're on the fire department, you've been involved in youth ministry. So you've seen the effects of trauma. You've seen the effects of, if we're honest, bad parenting. Honestly, just kind of tricky culture that we're in right now. So I think you are kind of uniquely situated with your experiences and with your gifts and stuff to kind of handle this at this point. I mean, you kind of mentioned that already, but you were kind of a lay counselor before you were official counselor, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I would say one of the things that I feel like my time in the fire service did has done more for me as a therapist than really my training, because I'm working with no less than 400 individuals throughout my career, and I got to witness firsthand people becoming parents,
Mhm.
talking about their kids, becoming empty nesters, even getting divorced and or
Yeah.
new marriages, all this different stuff. And then, of course, having my own kids, I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old, and making my own mistakes and learning. Yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Well, one thing I love about you, Brady, is you keep it very real. There's zero sugar, zero syrup. You're just gonna straight shoot talk everybody, which is how it should be. So the topic for today, so important, is just the whole idea of letting your kids fail, or how to let your kids fail, or even if you shouldn't let your kids fail. Maybe that's where we should start, perhaps. So I think this is actually something that you are kind of involved with bringing this topic to our radar. So before we dive too deep, can you just let us know, like, why is this something that you care so much about?
Yeah, I think I like to call it allowing our kids to safely suffer consequences. I see it so much in young adults where they've never been allowed to fail, and the first time they fail is when they go off to college and they really don't know how to handle it. I'm just really passionate about it because I think we have a misunderstanding about failure in our lives. Failure is very important for learning. We have to fail to learn. And, we, as parents, we really want to protect our kids.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we get in the way of that learning. If you think about, if I've got to lift things heavy for work, if I don't have to expend any energy and that thing's very light, then I'm not going to build any muscle. But if it's heavy, then I have to get stronger. And so the same thing works with our brain, works in neuroplasticity, where my brain's not going to expend the calories if I don't fail, if it's not hard. And
Right.
so we have to struggle a little bit for our brain to expend the calories to develop new neural pathways to be able to do those things. And so, like, if parents just smooth everything out and their kids don't struggle, we
Mhm.
actually get in the way of their ability to learn, their ability to build resilience, their ability to grow and build their own self-worth.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of us have heard the term of like a helicopter parent, someone who just
Yeah.
kind of hovers and watches their kids. I think it was our pastor Brent who I first heard this from, the idea of a lawnmower parent, to
Mhm.
step further, where not only are they hovering, but they're going before them and clearing the way for them so that it's a clean, easy path wherever they go. And I want to be careful, Brady, because like most parents, maybe all parents, are doing the best they can and they have a good intention. They're trying to protect their kid. So
Mhm.
how do you kind of differentiate, or when does that go too far? Where does protection versus overprotection kind of start?
Yeah, there's another term, and I believe it's out of Parenting with Love and Logic, where they talk about the Apache helicopter parent, that comes in with the full missiles and everything, just attack, attack, attack. Where that crosses over is, I think a lot of times we can tend to steal our or build our own self-worth as parents by stealing it from our kids. Like,
Mm,
we're trying so hard to protect them. Well, a mistake you'll see is, like, with dads who are coaches, they don't want their kids to fail, and their identity is wrapped up in their kid being so successful. I like to say there's the athletic talent in this community is incredible, because I know a bunch of kids who have never struck out. And the umpire has screwed them with balls and
uh-huh.
strikes, but they've
Right.
never struck out.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so, like, when we do that, sometimes we teach our kids, unintentionally that like the world's out to get them, that any failure is someone else's fault.
Mm.
And it really gets in the way of their development. And all of it is, we don't want our kids to suffer. We don't want our kids to
Mm-hmm.
feel pain. And unfortunately, a lot of times we can kind of force our kids to stay kids. Like if my identity is being a parent, when my kids hit puberty and go off to college, I'm going to be make everyone around me miserable because I'm trying to keep my kids as kids.
Yeah.
And so it's important to realize that they need to suffer some of those, safely suffer consequences,
Mm-hmm.
so they can grow. And then I've got to really recognize what my identity is, so I'm not clinging on to that. I can let them
Yeah.
go and be out in the world.
Yes. And I think a lot of this starts, I mean, probably like literally day one as parents, where
Oh yeah.
really your first job is just to keep them safe. So like I think a
Mhm.
lot of times protecting your kid like literally might mean when they're little, you don't want them to make mistakes that will literally physically or emotionally harm them seriously, right? So there's probably this ongoing process of just letting go, understanding what they're capable of dealing with. So maybe if someone listening has like really young kids at home, because I know it's important for this to start early, right? Like you just said, you don't want your
Oh
kids
yeah.
to fail for their first time in college. So with little kids, what does this look like? Because there is like actual physical safety involved, but you also want them to experience, consequences and things like that. So with little kids, what does this look like?
When you're, you can get pretty deep into this with attachment theory.
Okay.
And attachment theory is all about secure attachment. Like our kids are always looking to us for safety.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about when your kids are born, we're holding them face to face. They're always looking for us. They feel our mood. Um, as they get older, they start to turn and sit on our lap and face outward, and
Mm-hmm.
they experience the world through the safety of their parent. So they're sitting
Mm-hmm.
on our lap, they're experiencing the world through their parent, and we're going, look at this, look at that, and we're pointing at these things and experiencing it differently. They start to develop their identity through their parents first. We all do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start to go down on the floor and start to crawl away.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch kids, they'll turn back and look at their parents.
Yeah. Yep.
Every so often, they turn back. Am I okay? Are you okay? They're
Mm-hmm.
constantly doing that. And as parents, they're looking for reassurance in us, and we're giving them
Mm-hmm.
reassurance. And they go a little further and look back, and a little further and go back. And then they'll come back to,
Yeah.
that was too far.
Yeah.
And so it's important for us to have that security, and it's okay to crawl
Mm-hmm.
out there and come
Mm-hmm.
back. But just in that, and I notice like when kids start to walk and stumble and fall,
Mm-hmm.
parents will immediately rush in. Oh my gosh, are you okay? They feel that energy. When you see kids fall and parents are like, it was a good crash. You okay, buddy? And
Mm-hmm.
they keep going. So we're building resilience in that, not just rushing into the rescue all the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
we're checking back and forth. You okay? You good? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's how it develops early on. They need that secure base because it gives
Mm-hmm.
them confidence to go further.
That's great. And I'm curious if you're talking to parents, is there kind of a line where you have to step in? Is it just like literally
Oh,
physically safe, physical safety? Or I imagine there are some kind of blurry lines. So if you're not really sure if you should step in or let them fail, again, right now we're talking about little kids.
mhm.
How do you kind of differentiate that as a parent?
I look at it as if it's anything that's going to cause, physical harm to themselves or others, or even property. Like, yes, we absolutely step in.
Hmm.
You're right, that line is blurry.
Yeah, right.
Um, as they get a little bit older, the example I like to think of is like if my kid's swinging a stick around, and I'm
Hmm.
like, "Hey, you're gonna hit yourself in the head with that," and they're not gonna actually poke their eye out. I'm gonna let them smack themselves in the head with that stick, and then when they
Hmm.
do, I'm gonna say, "Well, you play
Right.
dumb games, you win dumb rewards." Um,
Yes.
but also not going, well, that was stupid, wasn't it? I told you not to do that. Now you did it. Now you're going to suffer the consequences. It's, yeah, God, that hurt. Sorry, buddy. Give them a
Mhm.
kiss, rub their head. What'd you learn?
Yeah. Okay. Let's spend some more time on that because you and I are both parents. We both have two girls,
Uh,
and my
yeah.
girls are younger than yours. Where I feel like I'm in that's they're getting older, but they're definitely in that stage where I can be like, "Don't do that. Don't do that." They do it, and they get hurt. And as a parent, that's just so frustrating. It's exhausting.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's it's hard for me selfishly just because I don't want to deal with it, but it's also hard on them because they got hurt and it was very avoidable. So you talked a little bit about neuroplasticity and how our brains adjust. So if again for people who are in that stage, help us understand like how many times does that need to happen? When do we need to be a little bit stricter with their consequences, or do we just let it keep going and they just keep getting bonked in the head by the stick as many times as it takes, or take that a step further?
Yeah, some of us have a little thicker skulls than others.
Right.
And I'm the kind of person that, has always been a little thick-headed. It took me a lot longer. I actually got to a point where, I'd be hesitant to pray to God to teach me something because I know how God teaches me.
Mm,
I learn from my mistakes. Again, it goes back to if it's going to cause long-term problems, if my kid's running out in the street and I'm going to
mhm.
grab them,
Yeah.
yank them up, and absolute no. But another important thing to recognize in that is the why. Our kids ask why. And a lot of times as parents, we look at that as defiant. I had a client that, I told him like, I hate the words because I said so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he was like he said to me, well, sometimes because I said so is the right answer. When a kid runs out in the street and we tell him look both ways, why? Because I said so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you see the kid look both ways and then still run out in front of the car.
Right.
The
Yeah.
why was why,
Yes.
well, because people are on their phones, they're not looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Yeah.
So I approach why always as curiosity. If
Mm-hmm.
I think they actually know the why and they're just being
Uh-huh.
pushing the boundaries, I'll go, what do you understand?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We've said this before. What do you understand about it? And so, you may get an interesting answer in that. They may actually not understand.
Yeah.
So I think, going back to the question of how far, if it's going to cause harm, we put a stop to it and we explain it. If it's not going to cause long-term harm, some kids are a little more stubborn than others. They need to hit themselves in the head with the stick 5, 6 times before they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to do that anymore."
Yes.
But
Yes.
I always treat it like a game too. It's fun. And I don't want to be the bad guy. I want to let the consequences be the bad guy.
Yeah. I don't know if how much of this we can go into. We have a mutual friend, Lori, who talks about the uh-oh. You know what I'm
Oh
talking about?
yeah.
He,
Oh
he,
yeah.
I just love that. Can you kind of explain that theory a little bit?
Yeah. It's when like one of her examples she always talks about is like kids throwing blocks. And when they throw the blocks, the hard rule is, it's if thens. If you do this, then this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you throw the blocks, we put the blocks away and we'll try again next time. And so if the kid would
Mm-hmm.
throw a block, and Lori would go, uh-oh, we got to put the blocks away. And so they start putting the blocks away, and the kid's like, what?
Yeah.
And I don't want to put the blocks away. And she's like, I know, I don't want to either. And that's the rule. We'll try again tomorrow. And there's empathy in that, but there's
Yeah.
also consistency. And so
Yes.
consistency is the key to all of this. Our kids are going to constantly push boundaries. We push boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know where the boundaries are. And if we're
Mm-hmm.
consistent in that again, that putting the blocks away, that is the consequence. I don't
Yes.
have to go, how dare you do that? I told you, now we're putting the blocks away.
Yes. What I love about that is it doesn't necessarily make you the bad guy or the target, it puts it on their actions, and it also
Yeah.
takes the emotion out a little bit. It's I think
Yeah.
as a parent, it's easier to not get angry if you do kind of like you said, gamify it a little bit and like, oh
Mhm.
man, I don't want to do this either, but now we have to. Oh, bummer. I hope we can
Yeah.
do better next time. Like I think that
I
is kind of a huge parenting hack.
I had a rule with my oldest daughter because personality wise, she's much more introverted than my youngest, and my youngest is more like Pinkie Pie from My Little Pony. She just bouncy, party all the time, and her older sister, would get kind of mean with her. And
Mm.
I had a rule that anytime she was mean to her, she had to do 10 push-ups. And we were actually in a restaurant, and she was started being mean to her sister. I said, "You do that again, you have to do push-ups." And she did it. And I was like, 10 push-ups right now. And we're in the restaurant. And she's like, "Oh my gosh." And she's trying to do them as quick as possible. And she
Yeah.
gets up and I go, "Now go wash your hands. That floor's filthy."
Yeah.
And she goes to wash her hand. There was a lady looking at me like I was
Yeah.
abusing my kids.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And she came back from the restroom and she's like, "I can't believe you made me do that." And I said, "I can't believe you were mean to her in the restaurant. You know what the rules
Yeah.
are. I didn't
Right.
want you to do that."
Yes.
Good job. And an angel the rest of the time.
Yes. I think it's a very effective parenting strategy. I love that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I don't know what age your kids were in that situation, but so far we've kind of been talking about younger kids. You're ahead of me on the parenting side of things. As they get older, I imagine this only gets harder.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, the stakes are just a lot higher. Like if when they start driving, they start making
Oh,
decisions about friends or jobs or careers. Like I can just imagine that it's harder and harder for you to watch them make mistakes. So can you talk as our kids get older, how does this change, or is it basically the same principles? Can you walk us through that?
yeah. When your kids start driving, that's quite a transition.
Mm.
The fear and the worry, I find myself wanting to be so overprotective in that. My daughter's, "Hey, can I drive in to church tonight and then afterwards, go to this thing?" And I'm like, "Ugh, no." And then I think back to when I was a kid. I used to drive up to Wichita. I grew up in Harper. I grew up in a very small town. I was basically raised by wolves. I mean, and my
Right.
parents didn't know where I was. And so in recognizing like, I was really actually pretty safe. It's trying to measure that out. It's like, is it my own fear that's governing this? And
Hmm.
I'm holding her back and like holding her like in jail. One of the things with my daughter driving, she always had trouble with her left and right. And so I was
Okay.
like, You know what? You can start driving to here when I say left and you raise your left hand. And when I
Right.
say right, you raise your right hand. It's
Uh,
if thens again. You
yeah.
got to prove to me that you're getting these concepts. And then when she does it, like, then I gotta let go
Yeah. Hmm.
and let her do it. So yeah, we kind of have to let go of our own fear in a lot of ways and just trust God and enable our kids in a good way, like help them be strong.
Hmm.
I can't
Yeah.
just expect them to do it all on their own. So maybe I got to do a little extra drive time and let her drive us in, even though it's awful.
Yep. Yep. Because then they need that experience, right? They need to fail with you so they can know how to
Yeah.
handle it on their own. Yeah.
Yeah. And my our kids teach us a lot too. One of the things I've done with my daughter is I wouldn't say allowed her to talk back, but allowed her to disagree with me respectfully.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
my oldest, she calls me a professional rage baiter, and and we were having a discussion one day, and I was throwing out some questions, and she just went quiet. And I
Mm,
said, "What's going on?" And she goes, "I don't want to answer that because you're going to get mad."
mm,
And I was like, "Oh." And she goes, "You're trying to get me mad." And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm actually interested in this subject and I disagree with you.
yeah.
Um, and so tell me what you think." And so she
Hmm.
started telling me, and I told her, I said, "I want you to be able to disagree with people respectfully, because you're going to get married one day, I don't want your husband to like control you. If you're dating and all that, and somebody has a different opinion than you, I want you to be able to disagree with them.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
want to be able to have that conversation between you and me because I'm teaching you how to interact. Yeah, kind of swallowing our own pride sometimes and allowing our kids to disagree and debate. If they're older, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of veering us off topic just a little
Are you
bit, but I
good?
think one of the biggest things that I hear from people, especially as your kids get older, is just the importance of maintaining a good relationship with them, so you can have those kinds of questions, have those kinds of conversations, right? So I know,
Yeah.
like, when as kids get older, or even when they're young, like, and especially in today's world, you're going to have to talk about some hard things. And again, I think you
Oh,
model
yeah.
this really, just because I know you, Brady, like, you model this really well. Do you have any, just how do we have those kinds of conversations with our kids in ways that, again, we're training them, even if we're being kind of stealthy in our training, but we make sure that our relationships stay kind of the main priority. Do you have any tips or advice on that?
Yeah, if it's my way or the highway, our kids kind of quickly learn that they are going to have to hide their opinions from us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and our kids are very good at mind mapping. If I talk about people and their bad behavior and then they see me do it also, if I act
Right.
one way at home and another way at church, our kids know that if I'm acting one way at home and a different way at church, then I know my behavior is bad and I'm still doing it. And so being consistent in that is huge. You know, one of the big topics that was going, was like the bathrooms and the gender identity and all of that. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
that in all our schools. And my daughters have friends that talk about different identity things, and
Mhm.
the things that I've talked to them about is Christ calls us first and foremost to love, and also we can have our beliefs and protect ourselves and really have our beliefs in what is right and wrong based on what the Bible says. But I don't have to push that on other people and be
Mhm.
mean about it, but I can
Yeah.
be loving about it.
Hmm.
Um, and then what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
And have my daughters explain things back on what they think. And usually we're a lot more in line than we think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
the interesting thing is in psychology, like the best way to radicalize somebody is push against them hard,
Yes.
push against
Yes.
their ideas, they're going to dig in. And
Hmm.
so I like to ask a lot of questions and answer questions and explain things and really just have open dialogue. But also we have consistent rules, is this is why, and
Hmm.
man, I'm not budging on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up some of those kind of cultural things, because you kind of joked earlier that you were raised by wolves, and I don't know if you were the kind of kid who, you left on your bike at 8 a.m. and came home at 5. We talk about that all the time.
Oh yeah.
80s, 90s were just a different era. And so I think a lot of parents, they kind of operate out of fear because they see the headlines of how bad and scary the world is. And I don't, there's really kind of competing ideas out there, because some people say, like, yeah, like the world is scary and you need to really watch over your kids. And then there's kind of this other thing of, well, like, actually it's not that much worse. Statistically, crime and stuff is, and drug use and sex outside of marriage, all those things are actually down. So I guess I think it kind of comes down to your worldview. Like, how bad do you think the world is? That might affect your parenting a little bit. I'm sure, again, in your practice, in your office, you deal with this sometimes.
Oh yeah.
How do you deal with? I think that's a big part of it, right? How bad is the world, and what is your worldview about how to handle fear and kind of the bad things in the world? So talk about that a little bit.
I'm a big believer. I know Pastor Brent talked the other day. He asked this question multiple times: is the world better or worse?
Yeah.
Um, that's the hill that I'll kind of die on. I put my flag on and say it's so much better. It's so much safer.
Yeah.
Um, World War II was not that far back in the scheme of world history. Slavery and a whole people group, was being marched to their death in Oklahoma, not
Yeah.
that long ago in human history.
Right.
So we are much safer, but we have so much more awareness of all the bad stuff now.
Hmm.
There's more anxiety now than I think there ever was before.
Hmm.
And recognizing anxiety is a survival mechanism that's meant to keep us alive, not happy. Trying to recognize what is the anxiety telling me? It's telling me to look out for something. And so let's put some parameters in place to make sure we're safe, stick to those rules, and really try to let go and let our kids take some risk.
Hmm.
But again, it's like not stupid risk.
Yes.
My daughter wanted to drive out to Town East Mall, and
Hmm.
she's a little protected. She has no idea, and it's hard for me being a firefighter responding to calls there where I know there were shootings and all that sort of stuff. And so instead of saying no, you can't
Hmm.
go,
Hmm.
I said, well, I guess Saturday I'm going to have to take you to the mall with your friends.
Mm.
And the nice thing about the East Mall is the upper deck, and
Yeah.
me and my other friend, he's a retired SWAT team guy. We're walking around in the upper part while
Yeah.
our daughters are walking around the bottom,
Yeah.
like hawks watching over them and laughing because they had no idea the whole time we were watching them. They never
Yeah.
saw us.
Yeah.
And so, that's a little bit, you call that helicopter parenting maybe, but I also had to be a little bit uncomfortable and kind of ruin my plans for the day,
Yeah.
to allow her some freedom to go do that. And then have a
Right.
conversation after, like, what'd you notice? What'd you notice around people? Did you notice
Yeah.
Dave and I standing over the no?
Yeah.
I-
Well, I think that's a good example because like you could have just said like no, you can't go, or you could have said sure, go by yourself and I'll just do my own thing, but you kind of chose a third option, right? So
Mhm.
maybe there is a third option more often than we realize. So I mean, I don't mean to dig too much in this one example, but can you just explain like how you landed on that third option and not the other two? Like what was the win in that situation?
I just looked for the opportunity in it because it was an opportunity to hang out with my friend Dave. I thought about it for myself because I used to go to the East Mall all the time when I was a
Hmm.
kid. And, there was some fear in there in the back because I had an experience at the East Mall when I was 16. I had a group of gang members that surrounded me and were kind of picking on me. And I kind of backed myself up against the wall. And it was a very scary thing. And ultimately, they were bluffing and they wound up walking off. But like, I kind of recognized there was that fear in there. But I guess to where I got to that place of that third option, if I don't allow her to go do that, then she's not going to experience it for herself. And when she
Hmm.
finally gets to a place where she's free, then she'll just go and she has no idea.
Right, right.
Um, and so it's, I guess, kind of doing the hard things, finding that middle ground to where I'm not just walking with her and helicoptering her. But there's
Hmm.
also some huge security that, like, I'm looking at my phone, I know where she's at the
Hmm.
whole
Hmm.
time.
Well, there's a kind of a related but somewhat separate things. We talked a lot about like failure, the kind of keeping people safe versus letting them fail. Another point that's related, I think, is the whole idea of disappointment. How do we help our kids deal with disappointment? So there's probably situations where your kid's not literally physically in danger, but sometimes you might have to let them do something that will lead to disappointment. And again, my kids are in the stage where they're disappointed and they just erupt and have a horrible attitude. And that's we're in that stage of parenting where we're trying to stave off of that. But like honestly, we still see that in adults. A lot of adults don't get what they want and they throw a fit. So I know that that's a
Yeah.
big part of parenting. So again, it's kind of separate, but we're kind of in that same vein. So as our kids are getting older, how do we help them deal with disappointment?
Being empathetic is huge. I heard an example of this where I can't remember who was talking about it, but he said, your kid comes to you with this drawing of a horse, and they're like, "Look at my horse, Daddy." And you go, "Yeah, it's great." And they go, "No, it's not. It looks stupid." And
Mm-hmm.
we go, "No, no, it's great. It's great." And we start arguing over whether it's great or not great. The
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing is our kid knows it doesn't look like a horse.
Right.
And they're a little bit disappointed. And so in his example, he was saying, ask your kid, what don't you like about it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, well, the nose is too big and there's no knees and the legs look stupid and da da da. And going, yeah, I can see that. What do you like about it? And then they start getting into that mindset of what's good, what's bad. And to go to an example of myself, and my daughter she's writing her own book and she loves to read. And I bought her a copy of The Green Mile. And so she reads Stephen King's The Green Mile, and she
Mm-hmm.
comes to me and she goes, Dad, my characters in my book, they have no depth. They're so stupid. The story doesn't make sense. And I caught myself going, no, it's great, honey. Your book's great. I've read it's really, really good. No, it's not. I caught myself and said, okay, where's this coming from?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I read The Green Mile and those characters are so awesome. And I said, yeah, they are. I said, do you know who Stephen King is?
Yeah.
No, he's one of the greatest authors of our time. Like he's extremely creative. And I said, also, Stephen King has a team of writers.
Mm-hmm.
He does? Yeah. And I bet Stephen King's first book, he started writing when he was young, probably wasn't that great.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, you're comparing yourself to Stephen King, sweetheart.
Yeah. Right. That's a
You've
rough
got
deal.
lofty goals.
Yeah.
And when she realized that, like that was her kind of handling the disappointment because I'm recognizing it. Yeah, you're not happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Keep working. What you're doing is great for, I think she was 13 at the time. Really good for a 13-year-old, you
Yeah.
know. Disappointment's okay. You recognize what you don't like about it. What do you like about it? After reading Stephen King's The Green Mile, what have you learned? How would
Mm-hmm.
you like to do it better? And so recognizing disappointment not as something to be ashamed of, but a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, and it's going back to the empathy thing of, yeah, I can see why you feel bad. And, let's be collaborative. How can we solve this together? What can you do? That goes into strength-based a focus of giving power to our kids. What
Mm-hmm.
can you do?
Yeah.
And then they start thinking.
I don't know if you know this, Brady, but you just referenced almost exactly an episode of Bluey where they're trying
One of
to
my favorite shows.
they're trying to draw a horse and
Oh,
they don't get it quite right. The neck's too long and the nose is weird or whatever. And then they kind of work through it. So Bluey's great. But
yeah.
one thing that my wife is really good at is she'll say things like, yeah, you know what? You're not very good at this yet, but like you're working on it and you're making progress and you're getting better at it. And I think that like yet, like you're on your way. Like, yeah, if you're 13, you're not going to be Stephen King, and that's fine.
Right.
But like look at how much better you're getting and how the experience you're getting. And I think getting your
Yeah.
kids to understand that's huge.
Yeah. And also like embrace the disappointment. The disappointment is an indicator of where I need to improve. And that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you're disappointed.
So with that, like sometimes there's things like that where maybe they're disappointed in themselves for something they can't do yet. What about, heartbreak? They get broken up with, or maybe they apply for a job that they really wanted and didn't get. What about dealing with disappointment for things that are just honestly completely out of their control?
It goes back to so many different things of like focusing on what we can control and letting go of what we can't. And
Yeah.
this is why, like when I was talking about the umpire thing, of why it's important to not teach our kids that everything that bad happens to them is somebody else's fault. And sometimes things just don't go our way.
Yeah.
Jesus said, "In this life you will have trouble." He guaranteed it, but take heart,
Yes.
I've, I've overcome the world. It goes back into that focus of, yeah, you didn't get it. I'm sorry. That
Hmm.
sucks. That feels bad. What are you going to do about it?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
keep pushing. And also, is there anything that you feel like you could have improved on?
Hmm.
Because I do see this in young adults where they'll say things like, yeah, I interviewed for this job and they didn't take me, they suck, they're awful people, they hate me. And I'm like,
Hmm.
where's that talk come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it comes from that the whole world's against me. There's this concept of learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
And we can teach that to our kids in that way, where the whole world's against you. You're never going to succeed because the only reason you struck out is because the umpire hates you.
Yeah.
The
Right.
only reason you get that job because they hate you. Being able to embrace it and be okay with it, recognize their feelings that that sucks,
Hmm.
and also what are we going to do from here?
Learn from
With
it.
the breakup thing, even my own life, I went through a series of breakups, and at some point went, maybe this isn't them. Maybe there's
Yeah.
something about me that needs to change. And I think
Right.
breakups need to happen. For young men, we tend to be very controlling and it's all out of fear. I don't want
Hmm.
you talking to that boy. I want, and especially now with kids and social media, I would see it where, the boys would want their girlfriends to get rid of all the boy followers and all that. It's all fear based.
Yeah.
But if he gets broken up with enough times because of that, hopefully he eventually goes, maybe it's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe there's something about me I need to change. So looking at all those disappointments and heartbreaks as a learning opportunity, to not immediately go, well, what did you do?
Yeah. Right.
But
Right.
yeah, that sucks. Why do you think that happened? Be collaborative
Mhm.
and empathetic.
Yeah. That's good. Brady, this has been so good. I'm going to try to squeeze in two more quick questions. We'll go as fast as we can here. But one of the hard things about parenting is like we will make mistakes and we
Yes.
will do things that we regret. And man, I honestly believe virtually all parents are doing the best they can with what they've got. Like we make bad choices, we do bad things, but I believe most people are really trying. So if there's a parent listening who's like, man, you know what, I really messed that up. Maybe 20 years ago, I feel like I messed up my kid by not handling this very well, or last week something blew up and I didn't handle that very well. Like that's you're gonna have those feelings as a parent. So what would you say to a parent in that situation, and how do we kind of give ourselves some grace while we also try to improve? Can you just kind of give some encouragement?
One of the biggest things that ever happened to me that kind of cleared this up as a parent was I had a conversation with a young lady where she told me her dad was a therapist. She's in her early 20s. And I said, oh, I've got two young daughters. I'm a therapist. What was it like growing up with your dad being a therapist,
Yeah.
dating and all that? And she said, my dad wasn't always a therapist. He was a financial advisor or something like that before. But she said, the greatest thing in my life was watching my dad start to implement the behavior changes that he was teaching his clients. And
Mm,
she said, so I saw my dad get better
mm,
and
mm-hmm,
be a better dad. And she goes, that meant the world to me.
mm,
And so in my own recognition of my own failures as a parent, my own failures as a husband, I recognize that it's really important for me to own my mistakes,
mm,
to grow, to show my kids what growth looks like, to model failure well.
mm-hmm,
And I believe it is so much more important as a parent to grow
mm-hmm.
and model that for our kids than it is to be an almost perfect parent who never apologizes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so it's never too late to start growing and implementing behavioral changes and becoming the best version of ourselves. I've even seen it in therapy where, an adult has spoken with their adult parent, or a dad who was an alcoholic, came to his adult child and said, I really screwed up. I'm so sorry.
Mm-hmm,
And started modeling different behavior change, and
mm-hmm.
what it did for that adult child,
Yeah.
life changing.
Mm-hmm,
And so I think it's really important for parents to recognize that your mistakes are fine. Like, just lean into them, own them, model growth,
mm-hmm.
because that's so much more important for your kids than doing things perfectly.
Yeah.
It teaches them a lot, and it can heal old wounds. And I've even had clients say, like, my dad was an awful dad, but he's a phenomenal grandpa,
Mm-hmm.
and he's changed the way he's behaved, and he's apologized for things when I was a kid. And it's like, now I actually have a really good dad. And so
Yeah.
it's never too late to be a good dad. It's never too late to be a really good mom. So I think that's my encouragement is, I don't think you've screwed things up so bad that it's ever unrepairable. And
Mhm.
also, screwing things up and repairing it can be an absolute blessing and the best thing we've ever done for our kids. So don't beat yourself up. None of us is going to do it perfectly.
Yeah, man, that's great. I love that, man. Well, Brady, we've already gone over time. You've been super
I'm
generous
sorry.
with your time. No, 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 nothing. This has been so great. I feel like I've learned a lot. It's been really helpful. Is there anything kind of closing thoughts we didn't get to that you want to hit before we wrap up?
One of the things is that I kind of really want to touch on was like giving your kids appropriate responsibilities. If they can do it themselves, do it. Don't steal it from them. It's so much easier to dress a 3-year-old yourself than it is to allow them to do it themselves, or letting them fold their laundry and putting it away, because it's not going to get folded right. Rewarding them for the effort. And, there's this thing of the zone of proximal development where it needs to be just hard enough where they need a mentor to kind of help them get over that
Mhm.
next step. And so if we give our kids things that are hard, and, like kid spills the milk trying to pour it themselves, we don't, what are you thinking? We go, buddy, that's hard. Like, that's a big jug. How about I help you out there, and let's work together and clean this mess up. Um, but really giving them age appropriate chores and tasks, because they build esteem by doing hard things. Don't do everything for them.
Mhm.
Give them some stuff to do. And that really makes things easier in your life as well. It's like, when I'm folding laundry, I take a basket and I throw all their stuff in there, and I fold my stuff, and
Mhm.
they fold their stuff. And if they, I don't, all my clothes are wrinkled. It's like, yeah, they've been in that basket laying there for 3 days. You're going to go to school in wrinkled shirts.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you added that because that's so important. And since we go to church together, Brady, next time you see my 5-year-old walking around, I almost guarantee you her shoes are on the wrong feet. Almost guarantee it. Literally every day. But we're trying to do that, right? We're like, sure, you can get dressed, do whatever you want to do, and if
Yeah.
it's not, if your clothes are inside out, they don't match, or you've got them on backwards, that's how it goes. So that's good.
They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brady, I love you, man. Thanks for being willing to do this, for sharing just a lot of really practical stuff for us. Appreciate your time today. Let's do it again sometime. You can do this again
Yeah,
sometime?
I would love to. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Brady. Appreciate it, man.
The Christian Leader magazine is getting a fresh new look, and we can't wait for you to see it. For generations, Christian Leader has shared stories of God's faithfulness among Mennonite Brethren churches. Now we're building on that legacy with a redesigned magazine featuring beautiful artwork, engaging design, and thoughtful content that connects faith to everyday life. When the new issue arrives, take a look and then pass it along. Share it with a friend, a young leader, a college student, or someone new to faith. Together, we can help the next generation discover what God is doing among us. Subscribe, share, and join the story at ChristianLeaderMag.com.
Well, hey, one more time. Many thanks to Brady. So many really great practical things for us to all learn from there. I love just the idea of helping our kids navigate disappointment. Some really good stuff there. And like we ended there at the end, we are all going to have regrets as parents. I know I do, and I'm sure you do as well. So there's just this constant balance of giving yourself grace and learning to improve over time. Brady's encouragement there really meant a lot to me, and I hope it did to you as well. Well, as we wrap up now, thanks again so much for listening. If you're listening the week that we recorded this, some of you are likely in Salt Lake at the USMB Gathering Convention. That's where I am. And so I hope it's been a good, meaningful experience for you. And for all of you at home, thanks Thanks again for making the Christian Leader part of your week. So hope you're doing well. I'll look forward to seeing you next time here on the Christian Leader Podcast.